Hello, my name's Dean Ramsden. I'm a therapeutic energy healer, which basically means you take the long history of hands-on energy healing from various traditions across the planet, and you apply a Western perspective on personal growth and personal healing. And one of the exciting things about this particular part of energy healing is that it can be used for numerous issues that we all come across in life. The most important one being, of course, living a good life, a healthy life, a happy life, and for many of us, getting rid of, reducing, or working with past traumas, past challenges from our life. Now, you can study a therapeutic approach to energy healing with various schools. The one I'm most familiar with and in which I taught a couple of decades ago was the Barbara Brennan School of Healing, and it still exists and thrives as an energy healing school for those interested in Barbara Brennan's perspective. Barbara Brennan, who recently sadly passed, was very influential in my life as in many other people's lives, healers' lives. And through a series of books, she presented a new way of bringing together therapeutic aspects with energy healing, with hands-on energy healing, and of course, spirit mediumship, working with the spirit world. So what I want to do in these series of short videos is review her first two books that presented her synopsis, her amalgamation of different skills needed, different trainings needed to become a therapeutic energy healer, as opposed to, and this is no disrespect to regular healing, as opposed to a non-therapeutic approach. So what I'd like to do is go through the two books that she first published and pick out from those books different aspects that are fundamentals, that are foundationals for a therapeutic approach to energy healing. So this hopefully will appeal to existing students, perhaps even practicing professionals. And I want to point out it is my personal view. If you want a purely Barbara Brennan-centric view, I encourage you to check out the Barbara Brennan School of Healing, and they will give you, from the perspective of being a lineage holder of Barbara's work, a very in-depth look at her written material. This set of material that I'm doing here in these videos is very personal. I don't mean to criticize. I mean really just to kind of revisit the material. And after practicing it really for 30 years or more, looking at where it can be expanded, changed, built upon, versus the original intent, of the book, which I'll get into in a few minutes. And like a decreasing number of people, I worked with Barbara. I taught with her. I was an administrator in her school as well as a teacher back when she was very active in her school. So what I'm teaching, or what I'm presenting here, is coming from hands-on knowledge. It's not just after reading her books. So the book we're going to start with is her first book, Hands of Light. And I'm going to work from this PDF, but I encourage you, if you have a hard copy, take hold of it and just follow through with the different sections that we'll look at. And since this video is going on YouTube, I believe, you can also leave comments below, and comments, questions, disagreements, whatever you want, go right ahead. But I want to start off by saying this Hands of Light has been and remains a pivotal book in my development as a healer. The second book, Light Emerging, which will be talked about, reviewed at a later time. Even more juicy, even more exciting stuff in here. But Light Emerging is a foundational text. And as with all books that were inspired by spirit teachers, were inspired from beyond, were inspired by the writer's higher self. You know, you can pick your preferences. In the end, it doesn't matter, because the book is actually a gift. The book is actually bringing together major aspects of Barbara Brennan's life when she wrote it, but also it constellated, it crystallized something that's wanting to come into the world, which is I guess you could say, an upgrade to energy healing in one way, because we're applying a very specific set of psychological values and processes, therapeutic aspects that work, that we know as Westerners work. Now, if you're a non-Westerner, you can still adapt a lot of this material, of course, to the culture that you come from. And I would encourage you to do that. I have Japanese students who also studied the Barbara Brennan material and other healing systems, and they adapt it to their culture, as they should. They adapt it to their clients who live within a Japanese culture. So whatever culture, adaptation, healthy adaptation, is encouraged. And the gift of a book like Hands of Light, and there are other books we can go through and highlight in the same way that we're doing with these series of videos. There are other books that we can glean. We can pull gems. We can pull golden nuggets of insight and practical application. We can do that from each book. But today, let's start a series of videos. I'll do short videos just so it doesn't get overwhelming, where we look at different aspects of this very important book, Hands of Light. Important for energy healers who want to take their work in a therapeutic direction, or want validation from the work that they're already doing with their existing teacher. That also is important. Validation that encourages us to go forward with our lives, or with our studies, or with our profession. It doesn't have to be specifically in energy healing. It can be personal transformation, personal development, and the healing of past traumas and shocks. The healing of a past trauma or shock is fundamental to Barbara's approach, built in to her various systems. And I want to look at that both through how she presents it, but also add in some options from other perspectives that are useful. So, in a nutshell, this is an amazing book. Pivotal for me. In fact, I first came across this book when it was still in its original form. Barbara wrote this book and self-published before it was picked up by Bantam Books. And I found the dust cover of her self-published book, Hands of Light, and that's what drew me to her workshop. That's what then led to me joining her 4-year program. And after that, after graduation, I moved into teaching and really making it my life Ever since I've graduated from the Barbara Brennan School of Healing, I've been a full-time energy healer, therapeutic energy healer. And let's dive into some of the important aspects. We won't get to everything in this book. That would take too long. But I want to cover at least the fundamental pieces that jump out to me when I review the book, which was written published in 1987. So it would have been written during the early to mid-80s. A very powerful time, a very different time to our 2023, which is when this video is made. But when we look back in the past, and when we recover what we've learned from the past and then update it, it makes everything more precious and also gives us a new perspective on what we're studying. In this case, therapeutic energy healing. Now, Barbara doesn't call it that. Barbara calls her system of therapeutic energy healing Brennan Healing Science, BHS for short. And if you go to the Barbara Brennan School of Healing, which I encourage you to do, if you're fully down with Barbara's system, then you will learn different aspects of Brennan Healing Science from beginning, middle, and end. I chose the term therapeutic energy healing because it's much more broad. I want to be able to add into my therapeutic system traditional magic, which is the Western traditions of esoteric magic, practical magic. I want to be able to add in Qigong, Chinese systems, which I'm also that was my original starting place with my energy healing work, was martial arts and Qigong and Qi therapy, the use of energy work for physical healing and emotional healing too. So let's move into Hands of Light. We'll start, of course, with the cover. If you're new to energy work, this cover may look a little dated, a little new agey, but those were the times. I think it's a lovely cover. So let's move through to, here's her dedication. So this is the book dedication to Hands of Light, dedicated to all who travel on the path homeward. And later in this series, we'll talk about two different ways of approaching energy work. One you could consider to be an ascensionist approach, right-hand path, where you follow the example of authorities and build and purify and go home, back to the Garden of Eden, all that kind of stuff. That's an ascensionist perspective, totally valid. But there's also an alternate, which is the left-hand path, and the left-hand path is one which sees the world as, and the universe as fully alive, talking to us. We talk to it back. It's relational. And with the left-hand path, authority is questioned. Authority is used to help and assist, but not to dominate and control. We'll get into the weeds of that at some point. But it's interesting to me that even at the beginning, the Barbara and the spirits that helped her write this book, in my belief, see this as a return home to a higher state or a more perfected state. So that's where we start. Let's move into the second dedication, which I think is very interesting at the beginning of the book. We haven't even got to the table of contents yet, but every book really has many gifts to offer us. Books speak to us, and you and I reading the same book will often see not only the same things but different things. How many of you have read a book several times and got more from it the second or third time than the first? That's human nature, I think. But let's start with this here. Barbara writes, love is the face and body of the universe. It is the connective tissue of the universe, the stuff of which we are made, and connects us to universal divinity. So this is very much the foundation of her metaphysics. And as we'll see later on, her metaphysics is based on the Pathwork Guide material and core energetics, which is a bioenergetics that includes the perspectives that John Parakos and other core energetic teachers brought to it. Love is the face and the body of the universe, so connection, relationship, that which holds it together. So none of us are going to complain or criticize this too much. But let's look at the second piece here. All suffering, she writes, is caused by the illusion of separateness, which generates fear and self-hatred, and which eventually causes illness. Now, suffering caused by the illusion of separateness is again that right-hand path that, climbing the ascension path. It's being kicked out of the Garden of Eden, whatever tradition that comes from, or a tradition. There are different ways of looking at that. Basically, the Great Flood that wiped out our civilizations hundreds of years ago, and the process of coming back to our fullness. So, for me personally, as an energy healer, I think this is a little simplistic as a statement. All suffering is caused by the illusion of separateness. Yes, definitely an aspect of that, but suffering often is also a lack of knowledge. It's a lack of self-knowledge, a lack of certain experiences that, when resolved, when those experiences come to fruition, when we attain a completion in our growth process, suffering then becomes far more optional than simply what we're suffering under. But it does generate fear and self-hatred, and this was fundamental to Barbara Brennan's system and the way she approached healing, that fear and self-hatred were often the root causes of this illusion of separateness, and that's what needed to be healed in order to progress in some way. Now let's move a little bit further. You are the master of your life, writes Barbara. You can do much more than you thought you could, including cure yourself of a terminal illness. Again, we want to pass this a little bit. We want to kind of play with this a little bit, because throughout her first book, Hands of Light, there is the impression that she'll give and say that you can cure yourself of terminal illnesses, severe illnesses, by doing your personal process, by bringing yourself back into wholeness. Again, after 30 years of doing this work, I think that's an ideal. But often terminal illnesses are not caused by our lack of personal growth. Environmental factors to illness, there are genetic factors to illness. So we want to leave this particular piece floating freely for a while. I think also when you do have practical experience with working with clients, I've worked for over 30 years at this point with various forms of clients in various forms of diseases. I think that you cannot hold this statement as true, that you can cure yourself of it. Yes, you can make a big difference. You can make the right medical choices. You can deepen, strengthen your energy body and your physical body, and that will make a huge difference with any illness or disease you have. Just don't think of yourself as totally responsible for your healing process, because that's too big a burden for any human to bear. There's always things on the outside that affect our health, as well as what we can change, what we can evolve and release. Let's complete this here. Barbara says, the only real terminal illness is simply being human. And being human is not terminal law, because death is simply a transition to another level of being. Now, of course, this is standard in the metaphysics of many spiritual paths, that death is a transition to another state of being, and that we have multiple lifetimes or multiple incarnations. The emphasis for me here is, yes, death will come for us all. Wearing one of these physical bodies does come at a certain cost, wrinkles and grey hair. But what a tremendous opportunity we have in being human. No matter how many years we have, 30, 40, in my case almost 70, it's a gift to be human. And yes, death will come for us all. We will transform through it. But in the meantime, let's do what we can to heal and release the past and create opportunities now and in the future for future expansion. Last piece here, Barbara's dedication, very important to every book, because that's a recognition of what the author is intending at a deep level for the book to represent. Barbara writes, I want to encourage you to step out of the normal bounds of your life and begin seeing yourself differently. And this, I think, is one of her primary messages, primary teachings, and her school, her actual school when she was running it, and I'm sure the current school also, that's carrying on her work. The teaching of energy healing, therapeutic healing, is a way to expand out of your normal cones of perception, your life experience, the way you normally think, the way you were raised to think and be. And this will come again and again through this book and other books that, Barbara's written, but also other healers also will stress this. She writes, I want to encourage you to live your life at the cutting edge of time, allowing yourself to be born into a new life every minute. Well, that's a tall order, but I like the writing there. I think on a practical level, we go through growth cycles. We really, at least I do, and my clients do. We go through intense moments of growth or weeks of growth, and then we need a break. We need to slow down, and then remember we're still human. Human is not a pejorative. Human is being human is a wonderful thing. So finally, Barbara writes in her dedication to Hands of Light, I want to encourage you to allow your life experience to be lightly dusted with form. And that actually is a significant statement, because in this ascensionist right-hand view, more and more the essence of who you are becomes valuable in that approach, and the physical form becomes almost a hindrance or a challenge. And I think that's the problem with the right-hand path, because from the left hand, the tantric perspective, the Asian perspective, everything is divine. Everything is an opportunity to grow. And since the universe is intelligent, she will lead us through where we need to go. But again, no criticism here, simply bringing my own perspective into it and valuing what's written, but also using it as a launching pad. And that's what I'm hoping these series of videos around presenting Hands of Light, reviewing Hands of Light as the wonderful gift it is. I'm hoping it's going to be a launching pad for all of us that are interested in this kind of work. So in the next video, we'll move into the different parts of Hands of Light. She presents different aspects here. Part 1, living on a planet of energy. Part 2, the human aura. Part 3, psychodynamics on the human energy field. And for most of us who were drawn or are drawn to Barbara Brennan's work, here we have significant meat to chew on, or if you're vegan, protein to chew on, vegetable protein to chew on. We'll get into some of these teachings and also look at where their source is, because a lot of Barbara Brennan's material she drew from different sources and made certain assumptions, built some building blocks of her process that you can accept and have and work with, or as I did, kind of move things around and try add different things in there. But we'll look at that in later videos. Perceptual tools of the healer. This is part of the training process that healers should and can go through. Yes, if you can afford a wonderful school like the Barbara Brennan School of Healing, definitely go and get the support, the hands-on support through there. But if you're unable to do that, location, cost, other things in your life, you can still study this book and some of the things that we'll talk about, and do some self-tutoring, do some teaching yourself with this book and other books, actually, not just this book, to awaken some of, or if not, a lot of this material. So just to complete this, and then we'll end for today. Spiritual healing, as well as self-healing. And in many ways, self-healing, your development as a healer involves you healing yourself, working with yourself, using yourself as a laboratory, and then you can more easily and more elegantly apply what you've learned and what you've experienced to helping someone else. And this is a part of the therapeutic approach to therapeutic energy healing that I very much stand by, appreciate, and welcome. It's the way in which we have to go through, we as healers have to go through a certain process, certain initiations, certain failures, it's not all successes, in order to be able to embody the work, to take the energy work and integrate it into a private practice, help other people, and maybe even just support the whole planet, our whole species, in getting through different challenges. So that's what we've got for today. In the next episode, we'll jump into some of the more detail of it. Maybe a few more comments also as to where this book originated. What was the environment it was coming out of? Core energetics, pathwork, guide material, and of course, Barbara studied originally energy healing work with the Reverend Rosalind Bruyere, and Rosalind's original techniques were taken in by Barbara and utilized. Not always accurately, but that's a whole different story. So that's it. That's all I've got for you today. Thanks for joining me. Hope it's not been too tedious. Next time we'll jump into some of the meat and potatoes of this amazing book. Bye for now.